All right, so we're at day 5 of voice activation. And we're just going to do a quick recap because we covered quite a bit of material this week. And so, do you want to start with
Yeah, we started off with communication and discussed verbal and nonverbal communications and then communication styles. And we just want to reiterate the importance of bringing awareness to how you're talking to other people, why you're talking to other people, when you're talking to other people, and what you're trying to get out, and figuring out those things before you start talking. And go ahead.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about framing the conversation, really framing the situation, that venue of the conversation, of a difficult conversation. But when you start practicing the communication styles and the verbal and nonverbal cues, studying other people, you'll start to observe that there's, do's and don'ts, right? If you want something from another person, or you want to express yourself or communicate your values to another being, they have to be in alignment with themselves and having a good day. Maybe if they get fired, it's not the best opportunity to have any type of conversation. And so framing and priming is not something that we talked a lot about, but it's very important, because you basically, if you're priming someone, hey Kyle, I'm feeling like I'm not getting enough attention. I need some one-on-one time. We need to schedule a date. That allows him to find space to do that, right? And it also, I'm giving him the authority and, surrendering it to him, asking him for help, basically. And so when I'm priming him with that, he's allowed to go off and either make something special or just keep me accountable to create space for that to happen. And so priming is done in all different sorts, right? Do you have anything to say about priming?
I mean, it's kind of like I think we talked about on the first day, which is people won't know where the conversation is going to end up or should end up where you want it to end up unless you help them get there.
Right.
If I don't feed you information about what, either what need I'm trying to fill of mine, or, ask you what your needs are, so that I can put what I want in your perspective or how it benefits you somehow, then I'm gonna have a much harder time getting what I want. Dean Martini talks about it all the time. He says, if you can communicate in a child's needs or communicate in somebody else's needs, and then get your needs to align with theirs or whatever, figure out the language to make those match up, everyone's needs are gonna get met, and that's gonna get done.
Yeah, and so a couple different people who are great at communicating, salesmen, I mean, they'll tell you exactly what you want because they already know, because they've studied it a little bit. They've studied you. They can identify and allow you to feel like you're understood. And I think that's the ultimate thing with communication is, I'm communicating with you. I want you to understand me. And when you communicate back, it's the same way. And then that's how we create that bridge. Another example of great communication or leading and priming in a conversation is comedians, right? They kind of frame the joke before they tell it, and then they take you along a journey so that you can see, so that, they're positioning you right where they want you. And those are just skills to study, right? So then we talked about love languages and, the 5 main love languages that are out there, and how we prioritize them specifically for what we like, how we want love to be shown. And then we have a tendency to show love in specific languages. And then our partner has his own set or her own set of love languages, the way, Kyle likes to receive it and show it. And it's the same with our best friend or our parent or our child, anybody that we're trying to, show love to, because that's can be a form of communication. Is just identifying maybe what they prefer.
Yeah, it's important. We talked about, and I think it's important to say it again, is just the bringing awareness. The first conversation we had about it, I really had no idea, hadn't thought about it, and it is very helpful. Because when you get back to, oftentimes when you're kind of struggling, I just have to remember back to things you've told me, like, well, how can I help her, you know, and oftentimes it works. And some of the things I've read about the book talk about, you know, when people just focus a little bit on helping the other person feel loved and meeting that need for them, it comes back, you know, as much more than you're putting into it, you know. So we have to get outside of ourselves, think about what other people's needs are, and that helps us get our needs met too. It's a symbiotic cycle that we live in, you know. We all need each other, whether it's the people putting the groceries on the shelves or somebody telling you they love you. You know, there's different things we're doing for each other whether we realize it or not.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a big step in self-care or self-confidence, you know, self-esteem, being able to identify and express yourself in a way that you want to be loved, or need to be loved. And so in turn, it builds your self-esteem up. And for me, bringing it up to Kyle, you know, I just wanted to make sure that when I'm slipping down like an emotional, you know, journey for whatever happened in my life, you know, I want him to be able to show up for me in the best way that I need. And he can't do that unless I tell him what I need. And so having this conversation at the beginning of our relationship was so helpful because he's been able to refer back to it. And when he didn't know what his love languages were, you know, I told him to figure it out because I need to know. It's not my job to figure out your shit. And I believe the conversation went like that. And, you know, it was a fun, happy conversation, but that's really the truth of the matter. I can't really be a good partner for him or be a good friend for him or, you know, be a good mom or a daughter if, you know, I'm not having that participation on the other side.
Right. And this goes back to, all these things go back to teaching other people how you need to be communicated to.
Absolutely.
And it's our job to do that. We aren't taught that.
No.
You know, we are not taught that. We're kind of taught to take what the world gives you. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's true to a certain extent. You know, we have certain circumstances, but we are in control of them if we're identify, you know, where we want to be and then how we're going to get there and then choose the people around us. You know, we begin to assert more control over our circumstances and change them one day at a time. And we do that through our communication.
And having the difficult conversations, you know.
Yeah.
It reminds me of one phrase that I love. I think you've heard it. It's closed mouths don't get fed.
Right.
And
right.
So, you know, if you're hungry, you got to speak up and you got to communicate maybe what you want to eat.
Right.
Right? You have to take the first step to letting people deliver to you. It's
yeah, I think another example is both a real world example and like kind of a running joke we have, which is that, you know, everyone's trying out all the time and,
yes.
and everyone's interviewing all the time, you know.
Yeah.
So interviews are a real life example of difficult conversations that people get uncomfortable and go have them. And, you know, you always want to do well because you probably want the job or whatever. But, you know, participating in my life is a job.
Well, so it's nice that you brought up interviews because we practice for the interviews, right? When it comes to like a white collar job, we're practicing for the questions to show up. And it's very similar in our life and in our relationships. We have to practice this communication. We have to see what works, see what doesn't, and, you know, try.
Yeah.
And so having a way to try, like what does it look like to try communicating? Well, it looks like observing other people. It looks like trying new things, like getting outside of your comfort zone and then asking for feedback or at least trying to understand and receive the feedback that you're getting.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much wraps up voice activation. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a process. These things, you know, you can always go further, and it's up to you to learn more about either what interests you or what you're not good at, or, you know, investigate your strengths and how to fill those weaknesses with a team member or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see you next week.